Good morning, guys. Today we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday on page 15 and finish the story. And if you remember, yesterday we stopped at the uh-oh part because we saw that the routine of the House of Peace, after all at once, it became horror. So we knew something was about to happen. It begins on a blustery, sour October day. I love the introduction of the description of the day. It's almost like when we hear what the day is like, we already know that it's not good. It kind of puts you in a bad kind of tone already. The mistress had crossed the lake to the village in her canoe with Lad curled up in a furry heap in the prow. On the return trip, about 50 yards from shore, the canoe struck sharply and obliquely against a half-submerged log that a fall freshet had swept down from the river above the lake. So we have the canoe is striking this log that's in the river. At the same moment, a flaw of wind caught the canoe's quarter, and after the manner of such eccentric craft, the canvas shell proceeded to turn turtle. What does it mean to turn turtle? Yeah, upside down like a turtle shell. Into the ice-chill waters splashed its two occupants. So we can see the two occupants from the picture are the mistress and Lad. Lad bobbed to the top and glanced around at the mistress to learn if this were a new practical joke. So he's not sure yet if this was one of their games or not. But instantly he saw it was no joke at all, so far as she was concerned. Swathed and cramped by the folds of her heavy outing skirt. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but she's got one of those big fancy dresses on. So the skirt of the dress is very heavy now that it's wet. The mistress was making no progress shoreward, and the dog flung himself through the water toward her with a rush that left his shoulders and half his back above the surface. In a second, he had reached her and had caught her sweater shoulder in his teeth. So here we have a key event. We have our two characters, Lad and the mistress, and what is happening to the mistress. Yeah, because of this wet dress, the mistress was not making any progress shoreward, which means, in a sense, she's in danger of drowning. So the mistress is in trouble. All right. She had the presence of mind to lie out straight as though she were floating and to fill her lungs with a swift intake of breath. So she went ahead to float. That was the first thing she could think to do. The dog's burden was thus made infinitely lighter than if she had struggled or had lain in a posture less easy for towing. So because she decided to float, this made her infinitely lighter and easier for Lad. Yet he made scant headway until she wound one hand in his mane, and still lying motionless and stiff, bade him loose his hold on her shoulder. In this way, by sustained effort that wrenched every giant muscle in the collie's body, they came at last to land. So another key event, right? Lad rescued the mistress. Smiley face. Vastly rejoiced was Lad, and inordinately proud of himself. So he rejoiced and he was proud. And the plaudits of the master and the mistress were music to him. Indefinably, he understood he had done a very wonderful thing, and that everybody on the place was talking about him, and that all were trying to pet him at once. Matters soon quieted down, and the incident seemed to end. So we have, this is a key event number 2. I'm going to go back real quick and just put key event number 1 so we can tell the difference between our notes, what's a key event and what's just a note that we might want to make. So I would like to make a note here that Lad and the people were very proud. Everybody is very proud of him. And I don't know if you can tell by the picture, but Lad doesn't seem to mind these pets, does he? I know he said that he doesn't care for people too much before. Instead, so he said everything seemed to come to an end. Instead, it had just begun. Uh-oh, what's he talking about? For within an hour, the mistress, who for days had been half sick with a cold, was stricken with a chill, and by night she was in the first stages of pneumonia. Oh boy. A little sad face there. Then over the place descended gloom. Oh boy, this is kind of getting sadder. A gloom Lad could not understand until he went upstairs at dinner time to escort the mistress, as usual, to the dining room. But to his light scratch at her door, there was no reply. He scratched again, and presently Master came out of the room and ordered him downstairs again. So this is kind of like, this is confusion. Lad is confused. He doesn't understand why she's not coming to dinner with him and why he's being told to go downstairs. Then, from the master's voice and look, Lad understood that something was terribly amiss. Something's very wrong. Also, as she did not appear at dinner, and as he was for the first time in his life forbidden to go into her room, he knew the mistress was the victim of whatever mishap had befallen. So what do you guys think happened here? Something was terribly wrong. For the first time ever, he was not allowed to go into her room, and she became the victim of whatever mishap had befallen. So let's make a prediction. Do you think maybe she passed away? I'm thinking that because of the word victim. A strange man with a black bag came to the house earlier in the evening, and he and the master were closeted for an interminable time in the mistress's room. Who do you think the strange man with the black bag was? Yeah, a doctor. Lad had crept dejectedly upstairs behind them and sought to crowd into the room at their heels. The master ordered him back and shut the door in his face. Lad lay down on the threshold, his nose to the crack at the bottom of the door, and waited. He heard a murmur of speech. We see here how loyal Lad is. He doesn't want to leave the mistress's side, even though he can't go in the room. Once he caught the mistress's voice. It was changed and muffled, and with a puzzling new note in it, but undeniably the mistress's, and his tail thumped hopefully on the hall floor. But no one came to let him in, and after the mandate to keep out, he dared not scratch for admittance. Those other dogs of yours outside there, the doctor said to the master as they went down the stairs, raised a fearful racket when my car came down the drive just now. Better send them all away somewhere until she is better. The house must be kept perfectly quiet. I'll send them over to the boarding kennels in the morning, he answered. All except Lad. Again, this shows us how special Lad is. He and I are going to see this through together. He'll be quiet if I tell him to. So, yay, mistress seems to be getting better. Or at least we know she didn't pass away, so our prediction, or my prediction, was wrong. And yay, that Lad gets to stay. So I think him getting to stay probably has a lot to do with his loyalty to the mistress, the fact that he saved her, and the fact that he's always been the only dog inside. So let's look back at what we've read today and see if we might have a couple more key details that we want to add. So we left with key detail that Lad rescued the mistress on page 17. Okay, but then we had something that wasn't the end of the story. So let's see. I think the next key detail comes, key detail comes where she gets pneumonia. So I'm going to put just number 4 here. We don't have to rewrite, or number 3. We don't have to rewrite it. It's right there. She gets pneumonia. And then the last key detail is that this kind of note that the mistress is making it. So far she seems to be getting better, but we know it's going to be a long recovery, and that Lad gets to stay with her because that's important to Lad too. So we have key detail 4 here. So that's how the story ends. I'm going to predict in a happy way that she heals, life is good, Lad is their favorite dog ever, and he's always known for saving the mistress. So we'll add our own little ending since we don't have the whole story. But today, be ready to summarize what we've read for the rest of the story, which should not be hard if you've taken your notes, because we have 4 key details that you can use to create your summary. 1 on page 16, 1 on page 17, 1 on page 18, and the last one on page 19. All right, my friends, we will see you in just a bit.